Biggest lead here for the Rockets, up 20. Martin into the lane. And is able to roll over. I thought it was going to fall off, but it just did drop him. And now we have Dillon Brooks and Derrick Jones Jr. having to be separated.
Been a while, man.
It's
been a while.
It's been too long.
The frustration from the Clippers, and Dillon Brooks has been smothering James Harden, but it was Derrick Jones who had something to say there. Not sure if those two tangled up. We're gonna. So
was there a mush?
See.
Was there a mush?
Dillon Brooks, and they're going in, and maybe it was a little bit of a push off.
It was the push off there that Jones took exception to, and then had some words for him, and
a little bit. See that push off, and Derrick Jones Jr. is going. You know what? I didn't like the push off, and what are you doing? And Dillon says, "What are you going to do about it? We're imagining," and then he's stepping into him, and that's the mush. And so
that
Jones,
was the mush.
Yeah, that's a mush, right?
There was the original push by Brooks, a little bit of a kick by Jones back.
Pushing him in the chest. So we have offsetting technical fouls. It'll be Houston ball on the baseline.
So it was the push and the mush. Offsetting technical foul.
Giannis Antetokounmpo has finally done it. Coming into a game against the Detroit Pistons, Giannis was making 45% of his mid-range jumpers as he's finally developed somewhat of a consistent jumper, and in the game, this new skill allowed him to pour on 59 points, 14 rebounds, 7 assists, and 4 blocks, shooting 61% from the floor. With an added offensive load because of the absence of Damian Lillard, Chris Middleton, and Bobby Portis, Giannis was able to put the team on his back. In the game, he shot 8 of 13 from outside the paint, those being the jump shots, as this has been a huge reason as to why Giannis is currently leading the NBA in scoring. This recent jump in shooting effectiveness isn't a fluke either, as Bucks assistant head coach Vin Baker, who when he was in the league had a great mid-range jumper of his own, has been working with Giannis to pass down this knowledge. In the years past, Giannis was always thinking too much about his shot, and he also wasn't hitting them. But look how he gets into the jumper now, as here it's just one rhythm dribble straight into a free throw line jumper, which he knocks down. Why is it so important that Giannis can mix it up? Well, that's because when his teammates aren't spacing the floor, he's still able to score. In the past, we've seen teams build a wall against Giannis and dare his teammates to make outside shots. And the most notable moment of this happening was in the 2019 Eastern Conference Finals, as after taking the first 2 games of the series, Toronto put up the wall and dared the outside shooters of Milwaukee to hit shots, and they didn't, winning the next 4 games of the series. So if Giannis is able to space the floor for himself, he doesn't have to rely on other guys to help him score. But what's perhaps even better is how this recent mid-range shooting efficiency has been transferring to his free throws. As in the game, Giannis made 16 out of a possible 17, which is amazing. We've been saying this for years now, as if Giannis could just develop somewhat of a consistent jumper, that would make him an unstoppable force. And that's because he can make plays like these. First, to start the game, Giannis was able to get the Pistons bigs into foul trouble, which then set him up for a night of dominance. Here, spinning through 2 Pistons for the dunk. Even when Damian Lillard returns, this is something I want to see the Bucks continue to do, and it's all up to Dame. As often to start the game, Dame is always taking tough shots, but instead of doing that, I think he needs to feed Giannis the ball so he's able to soften up the defense with fouls, which will then allow Dame to have better luck scoring himself. But back to how Giannis dominated the Pistons, now with Stewart on him, that's a better matchup, as Giannis makes a turnaround hook shot in the lane. With the Pistons now setting up the wall, Giannis finds the angle needed to finish on the reverse lay. Now with Paul Reed on him because Duran's in foul trouble, Giannis goes to work, throwing one down, and then with Reed actually holding his ground, it doesn't matter, as Giannis makes good on a fadeaway baseline jumper. Duran would then check back into the game, only to then commit his 3rd foul, and this play here is a direct result of not having Duran on the floor, as Giannis goes right to the rack and smashes another. Without Duran, the Pistons could not contain Giannis, as here Stewart is just too small as he gets beaten on the offensive glass. Now against his former teammate in Malik Beasley, Giannis strips him on one end, which then leads to a fast break hammer on the other. Under Coach Bud, I thought Milwaukee didn't utilize Giannis as a primary defender nearly enough, as they gave that role to Drew Holiday, which seems fair enough, but if you think back to the Miami Heat series where they were eliminated in the first round back in 2023, that was a time where Giannis should have guarded Butler. And because of Mike Budenholzer's old scheme and Drew wanting to guard Jimmy, Milwaukee would lose in 5 games. But now under Doc Rivers, that has been one thing that has changed, as all throughout the game, whenever Giannis was matched up on any of the Pistons players, he made life hell for them, even picking up huge stops layups on Cunningham down the stretch of the game. Then to start the third, the Bucks lacked energy, as they saw the margin go out to 18 points early in the third. But after a nasty flagrant foul on Stewart, where he grabbed the jersey of Giannis and threw him to the ground, the Bucks bounced back, making high-energy plays to finish the game. But we'll dive deeper into what the supporting cast did to help Milwaukee win this game in a moment. But Giannis was definitely the main factor, now backing down Jalen Duren for another floater. Even when Duren was on the floor, Giannis was giving him the work too. His overall touch around the basket has certainly felt much better this season, as here he pulls up on a 16-footer and cashes it in. Giannis has made a career on finding driving lanes to the basket, and here Duren anticipates the screen of PC, but jumps the wrong way, completely losing Giannis, who gets right to the cup. This play was absolutely incredible, as 10 times out of 10 this is a turnover, but somehow Giannis is able to stay with the play, getting the ball back for a throwdown. But what has been so pretty about his game so far this season is how he's been mixing it up on opposing defenses, here making another mid-range jumper. Then in the final seconds of the fourth, Giannis first uses his gravity to find the open Prince, who ties the game with a massive three. But in the game's closing moments, an incredibly controversial moment nearly ended this game too early, as here Giannis contests an alley-oop play for Holland and it's called a foul. In real time, it's kind of hard to tell exactly what happened, but on replay it looked really clean. But even though the referees reviewed the play themselves, somehow they come to the conclusion that it's still a foul. But then we were treated to the greatest ball don't lie moment in the history of the league, as the 19-year-old Ron Holland stepped up to the free throw line and missed both, as we got overtime after all. Then in overtime, Giannis continued to make the plays that got them here in the first place, now making another midi to start the overtime. It was in that overtime period where Milwaukee went on an insane 8-0 run, clearly fired up after that terrible call, as here Giannis makes the same kind of block he made in the 2021 finals, sending Duren packing. But the play wasn't done there, as he now takes the ball down the floor, hitting the trailing Brook Lopez, who's good enough to cash in on a 28-foot bomb. But just for good measure, Giannis, as if to say to Brook, whatever you can do, I can do better, connects on a triple of his own, putting the icing on a 59-point cake, as the Bucks pick up their first consecutive wins of the season. But despite a monstrous effort from Giannis, putting up 59 points while scoring 22 out of the team's first 24 points, Giannis wasn't the only reason Milwaukee won this game. Brook Lopez was sensational for the Bucks on both sides of the ball, finishing the game with 29 points, 8 rebounds, 3 steals and 5 blocks on 5 of 8 shooting from deep. In the game, Brook gave the team everything, making 5 big-time triples, but it was actually the defense that completely changed the game. Because of Brook being reliant on the drop coverage, he tends to rely on the point of attack defender to put the offensive player in the right spots where he can contest their shots. And in this game, there was no Damian Lillard, so that was working much better than usual. Here, the Bucks defense makes it tough for the Pistons to even get a pass off down low, and when the ball happens to fall to Stewart, Brook comes from behind for the rejection. Now with Duren trying to set up the dribble handoff for Holland, Lopez is able to get the back tap, forcing a turnover. Here, Brook is able to put himself in the exact position he needs to be in, here coming up with a deflection on the Cunningham pass. Whenever Cade was getting to the paint, he was having no luck trying to finish over Lopez, as here his layup gets stuffed. And after that, you would have thought he had learned, but apparently not, as later in the game he tries to dunk on Lopez and gets brutally sent back. Here Marcus Sasser tries to navigate his way through the defense, but is unable to get past Lopez, where he's stuffed. Anytime the Pistons tried to use Duren as a playmaker, it didn't work, as here Lopez and Giannis both swarm Jalen Duren, who's unable to get the ball back to Beasley, as Lopez comes up with another steal. Then with Cade Cunningham trying to go into leadership takeover mode, Brook was not having any of it, blocking him again. When Milwaukee's perimeter defenders are able to funnel guys to the spots where Brook's able to disrupt them, their defense looks great, but that's just it. When Damian Lillard returns to the lineup, they're not going to have nearly as good of a defensive team, as Brook is forced into trying to stay in front of guys when Dame gets blown on by. But because of how good Gary Trent Jr. played in the game, Milwaukee have a chance to actually maintain this elite defense even when Dame comes back. In the game, Gary Trent Jr. completely changed the momentum in the second half, making threes and forcing the Pistons into turnovers. This was great to see from the Bucks, as on the season he was shooting a measly 21% from 3 from a guy who's usually right around 40% on high volume. It's crucial that Trent Jr. finds his shot and makes himself a reliable defender for this Bucks team, as he's got the potential to be the best two-guard Giannis has ever played with, providing both the spacing and defense the team needs. In my previous Bucks video, which was in the midst of their losing streak, I talked about why the return of Middleton could completely change the outlook for this team, and to put a long story short, it's because of the lineups they're going to be able to run when Middleton returns. At the moment, the combination of Giannis and Bobby Portis has not worked out, as the pair have a net rating of minus 16.2 points, and then when you look at the best two-man combination on the Bucks roster, it's Giannis and Brook. This tells you so much about why Bobby Portis doesn't work well with Giannis, and the real reason behind why it isn't working out is because with Giannis more on the ball, it leaves Bobby Portis as the last line of defense, and that just doesn't sound like a good idea, and it hasn't been. To combat this, Doc Rivers wants to try out a Giannis at the 5 lineup, which would see Milwaukee playing small ball. This would keep Giannis and Bobby split up more often, while unlocking some interesting lineup concepts that could challenge opposing defenses. The lineup I think the Bucks would go to when Middleton returns is Ryan Rollins at the 1, Gary Trent at the 2, Taurean Prince at the 3, Chris Middleton at the 4, and Giannis at the 5. This lineup gives you the elite two-man combination of Middleton and Giannis, while surrounding them with 3-and-D talent. Also, if you've been unaware, Ryan Rollins has quietly been great for this Bucks team, as he's become an important part of the Bucks rotation, playing as their backup point guard. His defense was what first got him playing time, but it's been his ability to knock down shots and play with high energy that's kept him in the lineup. Unfortunately for Ryan Rollins, he suffered an injury in the game against the Raptors, but in the time he did play, he was having a great game, as he had 12 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists with 5 steals in just 22 minutes. When Chris Middleton returns, I believe this could be a real turning point in the season for Milwaukee, as it's going to allow them to have at least one and maybe even 2 of their top 3 best players on the floor at all times. This, along with a better defensive effort for the rest of the season, should see Milwaukee as a solid team once again. But that's just my take. Can Milwaukee return to the top of the Eastern Conference by the end of the season? Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments section below.
Brandon Podziemski is playing the most minutes on the team.
Take their time.
Turnaround, good, another big bucket.
Draymond Green is suddenly hitting every three-pointer.
And Draymond Green comes back and
And Buddy Hield is the leading scorer for the Warriors.
Corner, Hield, 3, goal!
here by New Orleans.
Hield!
Look at this.
Waters on the side. Good looking Buddy Hield triple.
And with that,
This is not the same Golden State Warriors team. Somehow, without Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, or even a healthy Stephen Curry, the Warriors are 7-1. What the hell is going on? Just a few months ago, every analyst and NBA expert was saying this team was cooked.
As I told y'all, this team is cooked.
But now, things have changed. Was Klay Thompson the problem all along? Can the Warriors keep up this incredible start? And what does Coach Steve Kerr really have planned with the Golden State's treasure trove of young talent? The Golden State Warriors have been one of the most successful franchises in the past decade, winning 4 championships in just 10 NBA seasons. But after the whole Draymond Green-Jordan Poole incident in 2023, missing out in the playoffs last season, and Klay Thompson going 0 for 10 in an elimination game.
He's 0 for, and now making 0 for 5 defensively. Here is Thompson, another miss. They were in the playoffs. Looking for the number 5 spot is Ellis.
Let's just say everyone felt the dynasty had finally come to an end. Just look at what Kenny from ESPN said about the Warriors' outlook in August this year.
Steph Curry and a bunch of really solid role players, which is cool. That might be able to get them 44 wins out. Like, it could be a decent season, but you're not looking at that roster saying a contender. And
Pretty reasonable take if you ask me. Any team with Steph Curry should be solid, but definitely not a top contender in the NBA, all things considering. Right, Kendrick Perkins?
Championship level roster? Absolutely not.
Vegas preseason odds were at plus 3,000 for the Warriors winning an NBA championship, behind teams like the Lakers, the Bucks, and the Clippers. So the rest of the world seems to agree too. But the Warriors GM, Mike Dunleavy, was confident in his new roster. In a preseason interview, he told ESPN that he liked their discipline, growth, and their all-in mentality, acknowledging the Warriors' ticking clock to win another NBA championship.
There's no point in going all in to be slightly above average. We're going to go all in. You got to feel like you're all in.
Remember, Steph's 36 in his 16th NBA season. And like it or not, it's only a matter of time before the chef is done cooking. The Golden State Warriors have to give him the best opportunity to win now. Normally, this would be for a huge trade for a star player like Paul George, but the Warriors couldn't cut a deal and instead went with depth, adding players like Buddy Hield, Kyle Anderson, DeAnthony Melton, and others. And so far this season, it looks like a genius move. Right now, the Warriors have the third best offense and second-ranked defense in the entire league. Just watch some of these plays. Here's a corner action started by Draymond Green, getting the ball to Kyle Anderson in the mid-post. Kyle Anderson calls for Buddy Hield to start the split action for a three-pointer. But the defender Jordan Hawkins jumps the pick too soon, and Lindy Waters III makes a beautiful back cut for an easy layup.
They get the cutting Waters for two.
On this play, 36-year-old Stephen Curry picks up at 94 feet. The slight pressure forces a Utah Jazz turnover, leading to an easy spot-up three for Andrew Wiggins.
And then you get a three.
And this play needs no breakdown. Steph Curry to Buddy Hield for a dagger three. Just look at the team chemistry already on this team.
It's good! Buddy Hield from downtown.
All of this success can be pointed to a few crazy plans, like Steve Kerr's 12-man rotation.
Or garbage time, and Kerr elaborated after the game.
We're going to do it. I've never played 12 before, but we're going to do it, so.
Yep, you heard that right. Most NBA teams have a tight 7 or 8 player rotation, especially during the playoffs. And there's a good reason for it. It's hard to develop team chemistry, rhythm, and flow. But the Warriors are blowing that idea out of the water. Right now, 13 guys are averaging more than 10 minutes per game. For reference, the Suns and the Nuggets only have 10 players with 10-plus minutes per game. So where are these extra minutes going? Well, Brandon Podziemski is taking on more responsibility by leading the team in minutes per game. The 21-year-old has great vision with dimes like these.
Nice pass. Motion. Final minute of the third, and Looney!
Although he's in quite a shooting slump. Moses Moody is finally getting some minutes and playing well, averaging 10.6 points on 66 effective field goal percentage.
Moses has to launch the three and got it.
J.B. DeRosa and Natalie Sago. Jackson Davis, here comes Moody!
And Lindy Waters III is taking full advantage of his opportunity. The 27-year-old shooting guard went undrafted in 2020. He started his first NBA game, and so far this year, he's averaging 6 points on 50% from 3 and 70% from 2.
12 for Giannis George. Around Green, Euro step for the deuce.
That's a good one. An open Lindy Waters 3.
Even the former #1 pick from the PLL, the Professional Lacrosse League, he's getting some playing time too. Here's Pat Spencer scoring 4 points in a single game.
That was tipped right there, picked up by Reese Beekman to Spencer. Flies inside.
Dante Murray going to be gone for another month and a half,
which doubled his entire NBA career total to 8 points. But these guys are all auxiliary pieces to the Warriors' new core. So what about the fallout from the Klay Thompson situation? Who won the trade? Well, it's early still, but Buddy Hield is averaging nearly 22 points per game for the Warriors and shooting 50% from behind the three-point line, the highest scoring average of his entire career.
I think he's got the red suit. He was so popular that night. Podziemski back to Hield, gets a reprieve and dumps out.
Meanwhile, Klay is averaging his lowest points per game of his entire career at 14.7 and shooting at 38.7% from three-point range. But it's not just Buddy that's playing amazing basketball in Golden State. Andrew Wiggins is playing some of the best basketball of his entire career too.
Gets back in, extends, outside on the wing, Melton, standstill triple.
Averaging 15.6 points per game, 5.4 rebounds, and 44% from three-point range. The Warriors need him to be great all season long if they're going to make a charge for the chip this season. But the one player that's the most shocking, it's Draymond Green. Right now, Draymond is shooting 52% from beyond the arc. That's amazing, and definitely not going to last too long.
Zion Williamson is just a bowling ball of power.
Yep, that's an air ball from a wide open corner three. But even with the Warriors' incredible shooting, it's not all sunshine and rainbows with the 12-man rotation. The limited minutes and inconsistent lineups will definitely rub some players the wrong way, like Jonathan Kuminga. Kuminga is in his last year of his contract, and everyone knows what that means for basketball players. It's time for him to ball out and get paid. But Kuminga is playing fewer minutes and scoring less points. Sure, his team is winning, but how long before the Warriors hit a little slump? I mean, at that point, who can't blame for Kuminga wanting a bit more personal success so he can get that big contract? This happened last year when we saw both Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga in the headlines for their desire to play more. Like I said earlier, Stephen Curry is about to turn 37 years old this season, and the Warriors need to be ready to pull something off drastic so that they can win another championship now. Sure, they're trying to outmatch other teams with their depth, but if that doesn't work, the Warriors might look elsewhere for help. And who better to go to than Giannis Antetokounmpo? With how things are looking with the Bucks right now, Giannis seems committed to leaving Milwaukee. I mean, everybody heard what he said about results and championships. Quote, "If we don't win a championship, I might get traded." So if the 12-man rotation fails and the Warriors are really serious about going for a championship, landing Giannis could be a home run. Giannis is everything the Warriors need, and the Warriors have everything that Giannis wants in Milwaukee, especially since the situation over there isn't looking so good. After firing Adrian Griffin and bringing in Damian Lillard, everyone thought the Bucks were ready to go for their second title since 2021. But it just hasn't lined up like that, and it doesn't look like it's going to anytime soon. So far this season, the Bucks are 1-6, and their only win came against the Embiid-less 76ers. Once again, it looks like Doc Rivers is running another franchise to the ground. Brook Lopez is averaging the fewest points of his entire NBA career. Gary Trent Jr. is having one of the worst shooting efficiencies of his entire career at 28% field goal percentage. And to top it off, Chris Middleton is out with injury. You can't blame anything on Giannis or Dame like you did last year either. The two are putting up all-star numbers and combining for nearly 60 points per game. Right now, the Bucks are at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, and it doesn't look like Doc Rivers knows what to do about it. So do you think the Warriors would be willing to part ways with their young core to land Giannis? Or will Steve Kerr try the impossible and run with a 12-man rotation all year? What would you do if you were the Warriors GM and wanted to capitalize on Stephen Curry's last prime seasons? Let me know in the comments below, and if you like this video, consider subscribing. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by subscribing. Make sure to tick on notifications because my next Henry Hoops video is about how a fat and lazy slob took his revenge on the entire NBA. It's going to be wild. Peace.